and there shall be desolation, because thou hast forgotten the God of thy salvation, and hast not been mindful of the rock of thy strength. Therefore shalt thou plant pleasant plants, and shall set it with strange lips. In the day shalt thou make thy plant to grow, and in the morning shalt thou make thy seed to flourish. But the harvest shall be a heap in the day of grief and of desperate sorrow.
Yeah, since everything got more reliable, so I stopped doing a test. Didn't realize my mic wasn't plugged in. All right, welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. So we're picking up at verse 22, and we're going to read into chapter 28. Though thou shouldest bray a fool in a mortar among wheat with a pestle, yet will not his foolishness depart from him. Be thou diligent to know the state of thy flocks, and look well to thy herds. For riches are not forever, and doth the crown endure to every generation? The hay appeareth, and the tender grass showeth itself, and herbs of the mountains are gathered. The lambs are for thy clothing, and the goats are the price of the field. And thou shalt have goats' milk enough for thy food, for the food of thy household, and for the maintenance of thy maidens. There's a parable there. The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion. For the transgression of a land, many are the princes thereof, but by a man of understanding and knowledge the state thereof shall be prolonged. A poor man that oppresseth the poor is like a sweeping rain which leaveth no food. They that forsake the law praise the wicked, but such as keep the law contend with them. Evil men understand not judgment, but they that seek the Lord understand all things. Better is the poor that walketh in his uprightness than he that is perverse in his ways, though he be rich. Whoso keepeth the law is a wise son, but he that is a companion of riotous men shameth his father. He that by usury and unjust gain increaseth his substance, he shall gather it for him that will pity the poor. He that turneth away his ear from hearing the law, even his prayer shall be abomination. Whoso causeth the righteous to go astray in an evil way, he shall fall himself into his own pit, but the upright shall have good things in possession. The rich man is wise in his own conceit, but the poor man that hath understanding searcheth him out. One moment. We'll just break there. 1 second. Okay. So let's just go. We're not going to get farther than that, and though I'd like to just keep reading. Let's begin the study. Maybe we can exceed what we read. I don't think so, though, because there was a lot of dense thoughts here. A lot of really interesting thoughts. And a bit that we have to look into, right? Though thou shouldest bray a fool in a mortar. You know, the fact that you're putting him in a mortar kind of tells me bray means something like, put the pestle to him. Among wheat with well, they mentioned the pestle. So I assume that the action, when you have a mortar and a pestle, what you do with what's in the mortar is bray it. You got to bray that. I'm assuming that's what it means. It's an old English word, obviously. It's an archaic one. And I could look up the Hebrew and it's going to be something like smash or crush or grind or something. But they use some sort of technical, or maybe it's some technical term about, grind to powder? Isn't that what you do with a mortar and pestle? Let's see. Hold on. And you can also, you can grind wheat in a wheat in a mill with a grindstone and all that. But you can do a small amount with a mortar and pestle. You don't have to necessarily go to wholesale production. Flour can be made, grains can be smashed up in a small bowl with a fitted thing. And that's been done for a long time, obviously. And that would be the more common way because you're not always going to have ready access to a mill. And obviously, in early days, they didn't probably have the technology. Though we know in biblical times they did. But still, they would still, just like we have higher technology, but we still use bicycles. Just because we have cars doesn't mean bicycles are just gone. And that's the way it often is. Old technology hangs out for a long time. We have a lot of low-tech stuff we invented probably thousands of years ago. I'm not going to try to go through the list right now and think one up more appropriately. So let's look at the heat. I have to bring this up for you, for y'all. All right. Or for ye, if you want to be truly English about it. For ye, because ye is plural. Bring this up for ye. No, for thee. Is thee plural? I forget. Sometimes that gets confusing me. Ye is in the subject, not in the... You wouldn't use it in a predicate like that. That's really bad English. All right. Verse 22. Thou shouldest bray. To pound fine. Right. Just what I thought. But I'm still curious. That's kathash. Okay, I just want to know what... I'm too curious for that. I want to know bray. Where's this, It's too easy to walk past it. Oh, bray, that's a name of a person, apparently. I usually don't do this on screen or whatever. Bray, definition. Yeah. Well, that's not right. Definition Bible, let's just try that. King James Dictionary. Well, they say to crush in a mortar. Well, that's the definition I came up with. Thanks. I want the Webster's. Let's try Webster's Dictionary. I should have looked in the archaic. Oh, just forget it. It means exactly what we think. I don't even go. I was just curious about, where does this come from and where does it go and all that. Is bray a word? Here it means to emit an utterance or sound loudly and harshly, the loud hard cry of a donkey. I wonder if that's related to it at all, but I wouldn't know. 1828, there we go, 1828 dictionary. Okay, that's one we looked at yesterday. I should make this a favorite. In fact, I'm going to make it a favorite. It's going on my bookmarks bar. All right? It's always going to start at bray here because this is where I learned my lesson. Verb transitive, to pound, beat, or grind small as to bray a fool in a... Oh, gee, thanks. To make a harsh sound. That's the second definition. All right. Nothing added to it. Oh, well. Now you know. Not like we couldn't figure... That's the cool thing is you can often figure out words you don't know from context. That's how I got ahead in school. That's literally how I got... I didn't, know all the words. I just got really... I was good at interpreting context. I never spent any time reading a dictionary. I consulted it occasionally for definitions, I guess. But even then, you didn't really need them because you have context. If you're reading a word used correctly, when you listen to people talk, then a lot of times you get words incorrectly used. That's how people get butt naked and stuff like that instead of buck, like the proper idiom. Like naked as a buck deer, buck. Anyways. And a lot of other things, like duct tape. Someone even made a brand out of that. All right, so you could bray a fool in a mortar. And I assume that grinding noise is why they called it a donkey's thing, because it is a very unpleasant noise a donkey makes. Not that unpleasant. If you heard it all the time, I'm sure it would get to you a bit. It's not it's not like the song of a bird, that's for sure. Imagine scraping rock across rock with the thing in there. But anyways, so the idea is you take a fool in the mortar among wheat with a pestle. Why is he going in there among wheat? To me, this is like a parable, like the parable of the wheat and the tares. You can put him with all the good people. You can try to grind them up. I guess this is sort of like... this is the argument of that they put out in, what was it? Trading Places, and also, of course, in... of course. Hoi Polloi, the Three Stooges short? hoi polloi, where the gentlemen make a bet about whether, whether they can reform these riffraff and make them acceptable to society. And so they try to take them in, and they try to make them. And I think the movie, it was Trading Places, whether it was Eddie Murphy or Richard Pryor or something. They tried to civilize this kind of streetwise black guy and turn him into a Wall Street operator. And whatever. But and that's sort of an old argument. Is it possible to take someone who is not a simpleton, you take a simple person, a young person who's just simple and doesn't know, and you grind them put them among the good, then you can. But a fool, someone who's accustomed to foolishness, because as we've read many times, wisdom and understanding are not part of their repertoire. They have other things in mind. Because often they fear not the Lord. And that's the beginning of wisdom. So when people don't fear, like you look at the president, I feel, on some level, I pity the man. Because he's such a godless, there's no fear of God in that man. Not that I've ever seen. Not at all. I mean, just a brazen liar, a thief of other men's words, a plagiarist, just a complete leech off society his whole life, and then he stumbles into the presidency because all the governmental agencies and the media and everything all cooperated to try to shove him into that office just to get rid of someone the people wanted, who was going to do something different, who wouldn't go to war every time they wanted to go to war. You actually question whether or not, how many people are going to die in this attack. They wanted him to go to war in Iran, and it was avoided because someone shot down our drone. Oh, they shot down our drone that was buzzing around their territory. We keep buzzing around other people's countries, and we wonder why we're in so many fights. If I was buzzing around my neighbor's house, I'd be in a fight. So I got to make sure my neighbor doesn't get at me, man. He's coming for me. It's like, dude, you see who you are? You're like a feudal lord. That's where the way we behave in the world, like feudal lords. We have right of prima nocta, We do what we want. All right, so that's pretty obvious. Once a fool, it's hard to turn a fool from his foolishness. You can't. Only the Lord can cure that kind of folly. Only the Lord can come into someone and open their eyes, because the fear of the Lord, then they can begin again to have wisdom. Because, like I said, you look at guys like Sam Harris, smart guy, utter fool. I don't care if putting his kids in his basement. Because you don't fear God, because you don't think there's a price to pay when our country is led by immoral, evil people. You think that, that guy, it's worse to sell people I don't like the way prosperity preachers rip people off, but do I think they're worse than people who have kids chained up in their basement? No, I don't. I don't think they're worse than that. And I think prosperity preachers are pretty evil. But not as evil as someone with kids chained up in his basement. And that's what Sam Harris thinks is acceptable for a president. So he's an immoral, godless heathen with no wisdom whatsoever. Zero. And you could put him among all the wise people in the world and he wouldn't change. And only God could bust through that kind of folly. Which I would pray that it should be so. Because it's always fun to see that happen. I admit sometimes I get like former atheist. I'm not impressed. It's like I almost went down that road, but I don't see it as particularly. I mean, I get like, how could you be so sure? I would have just become an agnostic. I would have lost my faith. I wouldn't gained a new one that, I'm sure God isn't there. I'm like, no, I just wasn't sure. So the next verse, I believe, is connected all the way to that. And I think this is a whole entire idea here. Be diligent to know the state of their flocks, look well to their herds. As I read it, I took that as a standalone, which it is. It's a good piece of advice just alone. But obviously, this only applies to shepherds. And how many flocks do you have? I don't have any flocks. Some might say, because some people say, whatever. I've had people say, you're my pastor. I'm like, I'm not a pastor. I'm not doing a pastor's work. You can say I'm your teacher, and in some ways that is a guide, a pastor. I can guide you in this. I can guide you through the word. I can shepherd you through the word. I'll accept that. But also, I'm not sure that that's what the original idea of a pastor was. We had teachers and pastors. I always think of pastors as hands-on people that work with people. It should be a proper extrovert. Teacher, it's okay if a teacher is an introvert because he needs to have his nose in the book. He also needs to live life, like I said. But you can learn from others entirely, I'm sure. With good teachers, there comes a lot of learning. Even with bad teachers, though. A wise man learns in all his circumstances. I'll tell you that. Whatever curveballs life or the Lord throws you, or even Satan. Because the Lord, when I taught my kid to hit the ball, I threw him not just easy pitches. You give him some easy ones till they're good, then you give him a little harder ones. The Lord ain't no different with us. That's what correction's about. It's also what practicing your faith is. You go out and you do the things. Live life uprightly is the majority aspect of it. Obey me. That's very simple. That's the first thing we do. After we have faith, we should work on our obedience because that makes a better testimony to other people. I said, having raised my family well, on examination of my life, I have a good testimony. At least good. Not perfect or anything, not by any means. But certainly from one thing to another, it's like you have strengths and weaknesses. And we try to glory in those weaknesses, bring them to the front so that we may strengthen them. Just like a part of the body that's infirm. You favor the leg that's lame. Favor in the sense of you don't use it. You give it the nice treatment. Same thing with your weaker members. You got to learn how to control them, not let them get out of control. Not let you don't want, because if you don't favor that left leg and keep your weight off of it, it's going to cause you to stumble. Now get your weight on your strengths. Focus on the good things. The idle hands are the devil's workshop, as men love to say. I don't think that's in the scriptures exactly like that. But anyways, for riches are not forever, and doth the crown endure to every generation. It's such a curious question for one of the kings of Israel to say, because it was the Davidic promise that his crown would endure. Now, again, but it's looking in the sense of like I said, I look at that, doth it endure to every generation? Generation of men, really. And it's like, no, ultimately the crown had to be taken up by Christ and ascend into the heavens. And thereby, and from thence he will return again and give this crown to us. And it won't be for generation, it won't be for, I don't know about, in the new heavens and the new earth, someone asked the other day, I didn't mention, but I always assumed we wouldn't be as glorified bringing forth more children. That he would brought forth so many children that would be, I don't know. Because I always said, there's an infinite number of personalities that God could bring forth. Is enough? Some people say there's too many people in the world today. God intends, and if you think about it in all time, there's probably going to be more people in God's eternity than there are on the earth today, even though, as a fraction of all the people that ever lived. I don't know if that's going to be, well, some people say that, what was it? So there's some major portion, I forgot what the fraction is, of all the people who have ever lived are alive today. I forgot what that fraction is, but it's pretty high. So I don't know. I know through the millennium it seems to indicate there will be human beings alive giving birth to children. And you can listen to my teaching on the millennium for that. Anyways, but it starts making that thing, the state of thy flocks. Look well to thy herds. It goes into that, you shall build houses and inhabit them, plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. You will keep your flocks and none shall make them afraid. Now you can look at it, I could take it from my, as a perspective of someone who's watching over the people of God who, especially, you consider when you're first a believer, when you're new and you don't know much about the Bible. When I was a new Christian, I was definitely just like a sheep. Even if I didn't want to be just like a sheep, I could hardly do anything except follow others. Because like I said, I picked up my Bible and like a dumb animal, a quadruped with not much intellect, I couldn't really read it. I could read the words, but I didn't know what they meant. Just like they could hear us talking. The sheep can hear us talking, but they can't discern the meaning of the words. And that's how the Word of God was to me, and I needed a guide. And I didn't get a great one, but I'll tell you what, even a mediocre one, if you're working hard yourself, can help you get started. But I would say this applies to all the things of life. The things that God has given you, control over. Just like your talents even. Think of, be diligent to know the state of your talents, the thing that God had given you to, be like, where am I? Look well. Now, you could take it as practical advice, of course. Look at your business. How's it doing? Of course. And I would say that is included. You should do everything you do it with your might, the scriptures say. And as the New Testament says, as unto the Lord, and not as men pleasers, with eye service. And we're supposed to go out our lives, even the crummy things, with a bit of zeal. I do try to. It's like I try to take, when I gotta pump out septics and stuff like that, that's not what I do for a living, but occasionally I've had to do my own in the past. It's like, you want to thrust your chest out and face it like you're going to battle. Not like it's that glorious or anything like that, but in the sense of not be all like, like I felt at the time, I don't want to be out here in 0-degree weather pumping out my septic tank, and this sucks. But like I said, like other times, it's better to, and I won't say I've always, as I said, I'd rather shine a light on my failures than on my glories, on my successes. I'll say you don't have to always be down when you're facing a difficult thing. We could take the challenge. Just like a race. That's why Paul, he likens it to running a race. And that's why we have metaphors like wrestling in the New Testament. We wrestle. It's there's a struggle going on. Riches are not forever, doth the crown turn to damage. Riches, they always go away, because you have to live. There's an expenditure. If you don't continue, some people want to just rest on their laurels, and in fact, that is something that people they are obsessed with. They want to stop looking at their flocks and herds, the active part of life. That active part of growing, but just to amass the riches and then just hold them. And be able to not do anything for the rest of their life until they die, so they can just enjoy pleasure to the end of their life. Which is, if I don't tell people how to live their lives. If that's how the world sees it, and I understand. Hey, there's Ecclesiastes says, enjoy your life. I try to enjoy myself as much as I can going through this life within the bounds of what God has. And there's plenty of good things to enjoy in life without having to go to sin. And looking after things, being a caretaker of things, and if not material things. It's cool if you want to retire from work and then do volunteering. A lot of people, that's what they want to do. I want to retire so I can volunteer and do something real. That's awesome. Saving up so you could do things for people like that. That's amazing and awesome. Saving up just for your own pleasure. You're kind of dead while you live. It's true. It's good to keep active at the things God has put us on the earth to do. Occupy till I come, not till you're done. You feel like, I did enough. We're supposed to be at our master's business primarily, and it's not just preaching the word. Like I said, it's being the Christian person, and the lives you touch, and the way that you affect people around you. You don't always even know. It's not all about being able to preach. Being a good parent. I didn't need to be able to preach to I don't preach to my kids. I don't make them. I do preach to them. I shouldn't say that, but not like this. I don't take them. I might talk to them for an hour. But I mean in the sense of where they're just listening to me. It's a conversation. I'll have conversations with them as normal, but I don't make them sit down and I'm going to tell you what's what about everything in the world. There's a bit of that. What am I talking about? Right. But what do I mean? I just mean, I tell them what the truth is, but I don't make them regurgitate it back to me and go through all this weird stuff to satisfy my need that they are, where I need them to be. I try to operate much more on the basis of trust and faith. I believe in the gospel that I preach. I believe in the way I have parented my children, fathered in my case, but my wife also as a couple, I think of us as collaborators. Everything you do has a purpose. The hay appears and the tender grass shows itself. The herbs of the mountains are gathered. There's different things. It makes me think of my life here on this little 3-acre farmhouse. It's a farmhouse. I don't own the farm. I just have the farmhouse with the buildings. I got a big garden. And I don't know what hay appears. The tender grass shows itself. I don't know what they mean by hay exactly. We could look that up if we need to. But we get the idea. Things start growing. Different things. Probably at different times, right? There's times to gather the herbs of the mountains. The lambs, therefore, there's a purpose. You need clothing. The goats are the price of the field. Maybe you need another field. Because, I always think that, as I work on the Lord's work, I'm diligently building up my house too. I always make sure I got the Lord's house, because you don't want to build your house of cedar and then have the Lord dwelling in tents. You got to make the Lord's house. You want to build up the temple of God in you, so to speak, metaphorically, first. That's priority. But the earthly house built up in a godly way is part of that, because you have to live. You have to have clothing. Let us having food and clothing be there with content. We all have to labor with our own hands, as Paul said. So we have to look after those flocks, because maybe we need the field. Maybe we need some clothing. Like I said, and if you do this, looking after the things, being diligent in all things, you'll have goats enough, milk enough for food, and for the food of thy household and the maintenance of thy maidens. If you're running, the point is, be diligent, looking at these things. Diligence is something that Scripture always talks about. The idea of leaving off living to just stop, go into relaxation mode. That is a sluggard. Now you can retire from your job. If you're accountant for 30 years and you saved up $500,000 and you're sick of that and you want to go do something else, or $1 million, or I don't know, whatever people save up. You want to stop doing accounting so you can go do other things that maybe are riskier or whatever, or for the Lord. By all means. That's not what I'm saying. Is it's not necessarily you got to keep being in some sloggy, terrible job the entire life. What I'm saying is activity. You shouldn't become a couch potato. Be active with your family. Get active with a church if you don't got much of a family. I have a huge family. That's why I don't really got to worry. I have almost a church. I have a church in my own house, a subsection of the church. The whole place is holy and sanctified, just like a house of God. That's why I have no fears. I have some fears, but they're not warranted. That's why all my fears are BS, as the Lord usually says, right? No, that's me. Riches are not forever, and the crown endure in every generation. Well, the Lord promised the crown of David would, but like I said, eventually got transferred to Christ. Lambs for thy clothing, the goats the price of the field. You got to look to these things, because as need arises. If God has given you the wisdom to rule over these things, don't just quit. Look after your flocks. Don't give it into somebody else. Stay at it as long as you can. It keeps your mind sharp also. Or like I said, if you're sick of your current occupation, move into something better, whatever. Know the state of your flocks, though. I guess that's how this whole thing comes off of me. Be diligent. Okay, we were only going halfway through it. I guess that was really only 2 Proverbs, wasn't it? Probably should have read more. No, these were very dense, right? So the wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion. I like that, right? There's nothing I always thought it was funny that people would just obediently do things that didn't make sense. Especially for so long. Especially long after, anyone who's really looking into this, the thing that really burned me up is the way the press in America were so traitorous and betrayed the American people by just repeating lies. There was no there was investigative journalism, but it was all on the independent media. The mainstream media was just 100% bought by the pharmaceutical industry, and it's so grotesque and disgusting because a lot of people don't even understand how many thousands of people have been killed because of their actions. And because of the censorship. Because of the censorship, the censors also have blood on their hands. They have blood on their hands. When you prevent the multitude of counselors from coming forth, all the wise men who know things about infectious diseases, let them all argue together. Let us hear their words and judge for ourselves. We can say, no, we've chosen the experts, the ones who work for you know who. The wicked of you the Lord will judge the hearts of men. And let me tell you this, it's not going to be pretty for some of them. Because like I said, being a hired liar, that's just the sort of person that goes into, like, you're not just a liar, you're a liar for hire. Dude, you're going to hell. Going to hell. And you're never coming back. No, don't worry too much about it. You probably won't burn that long. Like I said, you're not as bad as some guy with a kid in his basement. Not that I'm saying the president has kids in his basement. That's what Sam Harris says. If it was a conditional, right? Conditional is just a hypothetical. Whatever, I don't know. But yeah, I know what evil looks like. That's what's weird to me. Someone was saying, like, they were saying to me, it's a pity what Hamas is doing to its people. Well, you really don't even understand the difference between good and evil anymore, do you? Not that the Hamas is good. But like, it's like, to me, it's like that old gag when you take someone's hand and you go, stop hitting yourself, stop hitting yourself. Stop, you grab their hand. When I was a kid, we used to do that to each other. So we used to go like this. We'd take their wrist and you go, relax your hand. Relax. Then you start whacking them in the face. That's what I think my dad taught me that one. It's a fun way to play with people. So I haven't done that with my kids in a long time. I think I did it with my early kids. Or maybe I didn't. I don't know. For the transgression of a lamb, many are the princes thereof. Yeah, when people aren't even, what I was saying about that is people aren't even really being forced to do stuff, but they'll just comply. Like I said, without, and I'm not saying that makes them wicked. Well, I don't know. Whatever. Let's just leave this be. Let's not make that about the pandemic. Let's just say, I don't know. There's a lot of evil in the world. And I do think, I don't know, I think there was plenty of people, there's plenty of wickedness in it. I just don't know how to judge men, I always try to give them the benefit of the doubt. But all I know is that those who are bold, and actually, like I said, it's like I felt pity oftentimes for people who I could tell were true believers. Like they really believe this stuff. And I felt like, I'm sorry. But then I think about the people who knew better but did it anyways. Or like I said, or lie. Again, this is not always true, but this is sort of the cosmic truth. The wicked truly, they don't need to even, you know why? Because they flee in anticipation. Because you know why? Their consciences tell them they know they did wrong. Before they're even being chased, they're running. Right? I get it. That makes perfect sense. Like I did that, right? Ding dong ditch, run up to the door, ding dong, run. No one's even chasing me yet, but I'm already running because I'm up to mischief, right? It's very mild mischief, right? But I mean, I don't like, if I'd be sitting here all of a sudden, ding dong, I gotta go get the doorbell. Go. I don't have a doorbell, by the way. Just gotta bang on the door, I guess. The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion. Yeah. Because they have no fear. Their conscience is telling them, I'm clean. I don't need to run. I don't need to hide. That's what I've always, for years. Like, one of the reasons I got interviewed by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and I didn't know what kind of organization they were at the time, but whatever. They were asking me questions about something that I felt passionate about. And the reason they interviewed me was because I put my name out there. It was my real name. You could see who I was. I even could, I got the canceled checks, from all the checks I sent to Shepherd's Chapel. I don't have many more, I don't think. Probably not. I don't think I saved every check I made out to them, but years ago I did. I mean, there's a paper trail. I could probably get them from the bank. They probably keep them forever on microfiche or something, right? They needed to be probably for only so long. I mean, do they keep bank records from 50 years ago? I don't think so. And maybe they do. It would be interesting forensically to look at things as far as like for economists, I assume, or whatever. When you have right on your side, you have nothing to be afraid of. But the wicked already fear because they know they do wrong. They flee before they're even chased. That's why you see, that's actually just so patently obvious. Before the pursuit comes, they need to flee because they fear it's coming. For the transgression of the land, many are the princes thereof. But by a man of understanding knowledge, the state thereof shall be prolonged. For the transgression of a land, many are the princes thereof. It makes me think of like the way, oh great. I just want, just go ahead. I hate these things they call phones that are not phones. There's a phone I could just look and see the number. This thing I touch it just a little bit of miss and everything disappears. There's like something over there. Oh, who's calling? I just want to peek it. But somehow the heat of my hand triggered the screen to go away. Thanks. What an annoying device. I'm not. I tell you what. I am not addicted to like. When I see people like ding ding ding, I'm like, what the hell? Sorry. What are you doing? I can't stand looking at that thing. I can't stand operating it with my hands. My hands get a little bit. I try to save my hands for important things, and playing with that thing is definitely not something I'm going to give myself, carpal tunnel syndrome for. Yeah, it took me forever to get one, but I realize now it's like, yeah, I didn't want one, and now I still feel the same. I do like certain things about it, though. For the transgression of many of the princes thereof. So let's look at the over here. I'm sorry. Oh, that's okay. For a second, I thought I maybe had used up a lot of the study talking about that stuff, but we haven't. So, for the transgression, we're in the next chapter. Let's see what the NIV says. When a country is rebellious, it has many rulers, while a ruler with discernment and knowledge maintains order. I'm sorry. There it is. I like that. And I think that's what the King James is getting at. It's just hard to make that interpretation through the King James, I guess, or maybe I'm just being lazy. So, I get it. When the land, the transgressions, and this is so true of our country. This is why we have creeping authoritarianism. Not even authoritarianism. I'm not as much. I don't mind the government being a little authoritative as far as like about the law. The government needs to enforce the law and take the authority of the law and stop being so wishy-washy about violent crime and stuff like that. I mean, if you don't guard the people against violent crime, it's going to be pretty soon we're going to have to throw off the government. Because that's one of the purposes of government is to protect the people. The government starts becoming the enemy of the people. It comes time for the people to form a new government, just like the Declaration of Independence says. And we can do a convention of states. It doesn't even have to be violent. The people will just do it, and they'll be done. We can shut down Washington. Maybe we should move the capital somewhere else. Notice in the future, they always put the capital somewhere else. It's never there anymore. They think it's because of global flooding. That's not why. It's because we closed it. That's why. I'm just sort of kidding, but I'd be willing to do that. Close the thing down and move it. No. Just because of the corruption. So how do you how do you chase the rats out of the chicken house? You need terriers and stuff. You're right. Or minks. I saw a guy do it with minks. That's pretty neat. The minks go right down the holes. Yeah, so when you have a rebellious people, you end up with totalitarianism. Well, what happens is people come to try to control it. Right? I guess. I just look at our country and I feel like how our transgressions, now we feel more and more the heavy hand of government. That's what I feel like about it, is like it has many rulers. Many are the princes thereof. How many, like we have, I forgot how many generals, but we have like in World War II, we had like so many generals, and like we have like 5 times as many now, or some absurd number like that. We have a lot more generals than we used to have. I mean, not that the general is like our ruler, but what I'm saying is we got all kinds of people in charge of things, And is it a good thing for us? I say no. I don't know that word. Let's check out if rebellious is actually a good choice in the NIV. I want to go back to the King, because King James says transgress, which could be rebellion, definitely. But let's just see the word itself. Here we go. Pasha, sure, rebellion. Rebellion is a fine translation of that word. Rebelliousness, pesha. Transgression, but in the sense of rebelling against lawful order, as I recall. A revolt, national, moral, or religious, rebellion, sin, transgression. Yeah, rebellion against nation, or whatever. Yeah, rebellions bring forth crackdowns, right? But also in the spirit, I see it as like our spiritual rebellion against God also brings a crackdown. And and it's in a weird way. And so it turns those who, those of us, like there's a rebellion underway in our country against our constitutional rights, against the rule of law, and just basically governing by, what would you call it, ideological prejudice, and judging by ideological prejudice. People will be jailed based on their ideology, and that will be the law of the land. I mean, that's what the direction it seems we're headed. And we will become transgressors, and they will become more totalitarian in their attempts and authoritarian in their attempts to squash it. Because, I mean, some things, authoritarianism is great when you're talking about how we deal with rape. I want to deal with rape in a very authoritarian way. We're going to take ownership of this. We're going to do the kit. We're going to bring it to the hospital. We're going to find out who we're going to track this stuff down. I mean, we got to treat it like a serious crime. Serious crimes need to be treated seriously. Someone starts shooting a gun off in the city. This guy who murdered all these people in Joliet, he was out after having assaulted people, discharged a firearm unlawfully, all this violent stuff. You know what I mean? Like, imagine some kid goes to a school and starts shooting a gun wildly, doesn't kill anybody, but the next year he comes back and blows away everyone at the school. Oh, it's the gun's fault. So I don't know. I think somehow we're missing the boat. I mean, yeah, if he didn't have the gun, he couldn't do that. But, if he's really dedicated, he could get a car. What are you going to do, ban cars? There's a lot of ways to do people in to a dedicated person. Yes, the easy access to guns, blah, blah, blah. But like I said, it's like, what is the root cause? Why do people hate schools so much? Which that issue over in Joliet is a near issue here. Well, sort of. I used to do work around Joliet and stuff. I had friends in Joliet. And that was not that was a mass shooting, but it wasn't a school shooting, just to be clear. It was a man. It was somewhat of a domestic related incident. But anyways, the person who perpetrated that murder, that's, murder spree himself, had no business on the street. And by letting that go on, in a sense, we have more rulers. And then, in a sense, then we become greater transgressions, and they become, I say it's this sort of, as the land becomes more transgressive against first the law of God, and then against the evil rule itself. The evil rule becomes worse and worse and worse. For our sins, and then their sins, and then all the sins. It's by a man of understanding and knowledge the state thereof shall be prolonged. Unfortunately, I don't think we've had a man of understanding come forth. I mean, I can think of guys that I would like as that position. Like I've always considered myself. When I describe myself politically, I always tell people, well, I don't always, but I think of myself as sort of a Ron Paul type, libertarian type Republican, sort of. Because I don't agree with him on everything either. But it's certainly, when I think of like who I'd like to vote for, I want to vote for someone who's against all the wars we're currently fighting. And though I heard Trump basically make that kind of a gesture in his language, I don't consider him a man of great understanding and knowledge to prolong our nation. Not what we really need, but whatever. Not what we really need. But hey, better what you got than better you got something than nothing. We can imagine if we just had like a choice between like, oh, look, it's establishment candidate versus establishment candidate. That's what they want. They want us to have no choice. That's why they're trying to remove that guy from the ballot, because he's the only one who actually provides any sort of legitimate different choice. Like Haley versus Biden, that would be Biden versus Biden. Count on it. There'll be no difference between their policies. Zero. Well, maybe. No significant. She would probably be like less apologetic about drilling. As far as making war and things like that are destroying our country, that will continue. And the illegal flood of invaders, at this point, I don't know what else you're going to call it, that will continue. And then what our first world country will be turned into a country that doesn't even understand what this republic is about. That's what they intend to do. Anyways, that's why I see in that verse, a nation needs a man of understanding and knowledge. I thought Kennedy could be that man. But then when I heard him on Israel, he totally lost me on Israel. Just because he repeated all the propaganda I believed in, and it freaked me out. That was the part. That's what changed me. I was watching him talk. I'm like, it was almost like word for word the things I had heard years ago. And then I started looking into it, and I'm like, that was a sugar-coated, one-sided point of view that did not give the full story of what went on. And I just wanted to believe it. That's why the heart is you got to look into your heart to measure the man. All right, let's go back to the text. Yeah. I don't want our country to fall. It could fall. Some people want it to fall. But that's stupid. Here's the thing. Just like everything, it won't work like they think. They think they're going to bring in a new world order. They're going to bring in new world chaos. The only one that's going to bring in a real world peace will be the Antichrist. And I ain't seen him yet. I don't see anybody that looks like an Antichrist to me. Klaus Schwab, that guy, he looks like the devil. Not like the Antichrist. Antichrist isn't that going to be so ugly old man. He has zero charisma. He sounds like Hitler's, uncharismatic uncle. He sounds like my Uncle Willie, actually, is what he sounds like. It's like, I'm sorry to mock my uncle. No, sorry, buddy. But whatever. Reminds me of his accent, and he has this deep, slow voice, whatever. Klaus Schwab. Can't stand that guy. That's the charismatic guy. Nah, he ain't the guy. He's a bootlicker, a Satan bootlicker, yeah. I don't see Satan yet, so I don't really believe in them. I think they kind of are biting off more than they can chew, and that could be evidenced by a deadly wound to their plans, so to speak. They're trying to make this beast rise, and they can't do it. They'll just create chaos. And then that may be the opportunity there, I suppose. Or, the history will go on, and it'll be another cycle of history, because that can happen too. Because we can recover from it, I believe. It's like if it's not the end of the world, then it's not the end of the world. And I intend, I don't believe in them. I just don't. Just like I said, I always believed. I never apologized for the way I raised my kids, to my kids or to anybody else, but certainly not to my kids, except when I made a mistake, obviously. But I never apologized for the methodology per se, or for the Christianity, because I believe in it. I believe in what we did. People ask me about homeschooling. They used to be skeptical. I would not get defensive even in a little bit. I kind of was trying to take on a little bit of I took on a superior mindset. I don't want to say haughty, because I don't want to go that far. But superior, yes. Just like the Lord speaking down to the Pharisees. In the sense of when someone comes at me, when the wicked come at me in a certain way, I'm ready to put them in their place. Because I do not show them any weakness. I want them to know because they need to run. They've come to the wrong man. A poor man that oppresseth the poor is like a sweeping rain which leaveth no food. Let's look at that seems to, I just want to make sure that's translated cool. Not cool, but let's look at the NIV for that. Because I understand those translations are fine, but it's like maybe that we could have worded it a little differently. A ruler who oppresses the poor. Well, now that makes more sense. Because I was going to say, the rain coming and leaving things growing, that happens. I mean, I got to tell you, I'll get my garden all plowed, everything planted, and then it rains. And then like 2 days later, it's just the carpet of green, of like little budding plants. Mostly because I've never thoroughly weeded the thing. We always end up with a lot of seeds at the end of the season. So there's always like a little green carpet, and I go through, till it again, and we hoe it, at least till the plants get going. And then later in the season, we kind of sometimes get a little bit of weeds going. But a ruler who oppresses the poor, that makes sense, because the ruler is supposed to look after, like I said, after the good of the people. It's just like now, like they're bringing all the illegal migrants and moving them into the schools in the black neighborhoods in Chicago, and into their parks, and into, like, are you kidding me? Why don't we send them to Martha's Vineyard where they got money? Send them up to North Barrington. Put them in Barrington High School. Not Chicago schools. Put them in Barrington. Put them in the rich places. But no. Of course not. Not at your school. Their school. I tell you, they're spelling their own doom. In a sense, I mean, because this is being done in their, by the mayor they chose. Wow. So it's getting about politics, but this is about politics. Come on, ruler who oppresses the poor. It's like a driving rain that leaves no crops. I mean, the good thing, like a driving rain is kind of like, but the bright side, you're like, well, it's raining cats and dogs out there, but we know that's, hey, at the right time, it should leave everything growing. Just, we need rain from time. I mean, rain is absolutely necessary. It's one of the things that is a metaphor for God's blessing, the early and the latter rain. But of course, a driving rain, a little harsh rain, while it is sometimes not pleasant for humans, plants don't mind. And certainly if they haven't sprouted or whatever, if they need rain, they want it. But imagine a rain that doesn't bring any crops. You come back and like nothing's growing. It's like acid rain or something like that. And that's a ruler who oppresses the poor. Now, why do they say that? Did the King James mess up? I wonder why they did that. Because I'll tell you what. They have two words here for poor. The first one is pesha. Oh, no, that's transgression. Well, let me see. It was dal, rush. Kathash. That's the pound brain. Let's get rid of this stuff. Okay. This is the first word. Okay. See, they translated here when I looked at this, I put poor and it says rush, to be in want or poor. And I look here and it says, come on. Here, and it says rush, okay, to be in want or poor. Good. Now the second one, when I look here, it says dal, lean. A poor man that oppresseth the poor, the lean. And that word dal, it says means a door. In a sense, as an adjective, it means low, weak, poor, or thin. Like a door is thin, like I'm thin as a door, I guess. Skinny as a door. And by metaphor, skinny, weak. Dalal, properly dangling, by implication, weak thing or thin. A door is the weak point of any structure. I mean, if you want to get in a structure, where do you try first? Well, at the door. It's a lot easier to kick in the door than to climb in the window, if you ask me. Doors are nothing. I mean, not if you got a boot on, and you're as big as I am. Unless it's some sort of reinforced, a normal door, it's just a moment to kick the frame out. That's nothing at all. Anyways, so, there it is. No, Proverbs 28. It isn't 20. Yeah, it's 28. As opposed to whatever. I don't think that's this, because that's rush. Rush. Now, rush, I see what they're going. Okay, any of you Hebrew scholars may know, what does that remind you of? The chief prince, right? Rush, the chief prince. Rush from Ezekiel. So the word Rush in Hebrew, if pointed differently with the vowels, you know what I mean, means ruler. It's a different word. And so what the NIV was saying in translating it Rush is this is not, it's not Rush, it's Rush or whatever. The difference is there's like a different vowel. And I don't have that word right here. Well, I can look up prince. I don't actually usually look things up by word, but that's what they're getting at, I think, is they think that word may be pointed wrong or there's some sort of miscopying error is what the NIV is saying. And I'll tell you what, it's hard for me to understand because here's the thing. A poor man who oppresses men who are even poorer than him, how is that a sweeper? He really isn't the rain that could bring refreshing, so I don't know if that's exactly the right. He's like he's I don't know what to describe that person as. But he exists. And maybe, what I think of is actually this, is that like, when it's like, I was listening to this guy talk about the iron triangle in the black community. Is the preacher, the politician, and the preacher, the politician, and the, what was the iron triangle? The third one. Oh, I forgot what the third one was. The local organizer? I don't know. There's an iron triangle. Basically to keep them voting the same way. I don't want to tell people how to vote. So not based on your race. That seems like, votes based on your needs. But it does make me think of when one's own people betray them. For example, and this is one of the things this is what's wrong with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because what it is like, what they say is like, in the name of, they'll put diverse faces up there oppressing us. So now, you don't have to be oppressed by a white man. Now you get to be oppressed by a black woman who's trans or something. And you can be oppressed by a gay Asian with a disability instead of a white man who's perfectly healthy. I mean, now you can feel good about your oppression because your oppression looks like you. I don't know if that's what this means, but it certainly makes me think of that. When you talk about the poor man oppressing the poor, that's when, that's what, when people complain about black on black violence, if white on white violence was a big problem, we just don't have as big a problem. So I'm not, it's there's not really a big issue. Though, I mean, I'm opposed to it. I'm opposed to all kinds of violence of all kinds of people. But, we treat this a minority class as a poor class. And so we say, okay, well, we're going to give you your politicians. We're going to give you your leaders. And, we used to forbid them those things. So we allow you your leaders, which is fine. But then we corrupt their leaders, or the political party corrupts their leaders with money and stuff, keeping them down and they get rewarded. So some people in the poor community will get rewarded and enriched, but their job is to keep the rest of the people down. And that's part of what's wrong with our country in a lot of, same thing. I don't think it should be white or black. I don't think white politicians should be looking after white people, but the politicians from our area that we elect ought to be looking out for the interests of the people that live in the district, whoever they happen to be. And when we send one of our own, like you elect someone, like in New York, they elected that girl who was from a college or whatever, and she was young and fresh, and they thought, we'll get some, she's a person of the people. But then suddenly, they're part of the party. Some of the people you send there, they remain true to their principles, but most of them, they don't. They immediately get swallowed up by, I'm going to be Mr. Smith going to Washington, and then they come back and they're not Mr. Smith, they're Mr. Swamp. That's what's the worst, is like you send some guy, he's just a regular Joe, whatever. He may not be, hardly anyone ever poor gets to go to Washington, but, not all of them are rich. Sometimes you get people come up from the bottom. Like, Harry Truman was not, he was a work up from the bottom guy. He didn't come out from money or anything like that. He was just a poor farmer who got involved in politics and worked his way up. Not that he was a particular oppressor, that I would say. I mean, of course, there's all kinds of oppression from above. No leader is going to be perfect, and I'm certainly not a huge fan of him or anything. I mean, Whatever. They that forsake the law praise the wicked. Let's go back. They that forsake the law praise the wicked, but such as keep the law contend with them. I like that, because like it says, we are to wrestle. There's a contention. We are to earnestly contend for the faith. We ought not be contentious. That's what you got to understand. That's the subtlety of wisdom. So some people would say, well, the Bible's contradictory. It says you should earnestly contend for the faith, and then it says be not contentious. How contradictory. That's why I embrace those things. That's what's good to know of the... It's like, sure, the Bible has contradictions, because it deals with the contradictions of life. You never had two opposing ideas come at you? And how do you sort them out? Because they can both be equally attractive, because they may, in different situations, be the right decision. Shock. So sometimes do not be contentious. Sometimes be contentious as you can be, because you're called to it. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, evil rulers of the darkness of this world. Against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Against the rulers of the dark, against principalities and powers on high, in the heavenlies. They that forsake the law praise the wicked. I mean, is it not true? They love sinful people. And not that I hate them. I don't hate sinful people. I love them too. But I certainly don't praise the sins of the wicked, or the wicked themselves who do these sins openly and unapologetically. When someone is an open and an unapologetic sinner, I don't hate them, but I will not praise them. I will not praise these celebrities. I won't even mention their names, all those famous people who get up on stage and waggle their genitals at people, and dress up in skimpy clothing and sell themselves like prostitutes and whores on stage, and the men who do the same for fame and fortune and whatever. And those people that do not know right, they praise the wicked, and they help them to prosper. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. Is that the most wicked thing in the world? No, I'll tell you what, I think all the celebrities in the world aren't half as bad as someone with a kid in their basement. I don't know if that's the theme of today, but it's true. I can't get over the fact that Sam Harris, I want to mention him by name, he said that. He actually let that come out of his mouth. He wrote a letter to a Christian nation. Shut up, you fool. You don't call anyone a fool. He called himself a fool. He called himself out a fool. It's not my assessment. Well, it is my assessment. Whatever. Doesn't mean he, like I said, I ain't judging him. I ain't condemning him. I'm just, hey, didn't I condemn someone? No, well, yeah, hired liar. Hired liar's going to hell, yeah. But they got it, but only Jesus can save him, of course. I should have added that, right? I hope you assume that, I don't want to make anyone stumble at such things. Hired Christians don't become hired liars, okay? If you're being a hired liar and a Christian, I guess I don't believe you on the Christian part. What happened to your conscience? Because that's pretty evil, to lie to the public and to collect, millions of dollars a year to do that. That's really wicked, like exceedingly wicked. And it doesn't matter if you think you get away with it. God sees. And you don't fear him, but truth is you should. I know. I know. Yeah. And I get it. I tell you what, myself personally, I don't like to watch a lot of the specific wicked, especially Hollywood. I don't get off on the outrage. They call it outrage porn sometimes. Meaning people behaving really outrageously. Oh, look at what they said. Anything that gets too cringy like that, I never could watch the drag queens doing this stuff. I don't like seeing it. I mean, I've seen hints of it, but I was like, it's like, I don't want to see this. It's like watching, you ever watch like Slaughterhouse? Or you ever remember that movie years ago, Faces of Death? Awful thing. Some people like to watch that. I can't stand it, all right? So I don't count myself better than you. I don't. Because to me, it's easy to look away. Some things some things by nature, they just do not affect us very well. We all have different sins and challenges. We shouldn't look down on people for their struggles. I try not to, but evil is evil. I mean, and great evil we can't sit by quietly. We must contend with the wicked. That's why I write the music I do for the cult, because it's like I've been, ever since the Bloodstained Bible in 2000, all that stuff was to contend with the wicked. Working on it. Eventually it's all going to explode and all that. Or explode in my face, right? Probably. Okay. I like this one so much that let's just save it for next time. We're at an hour and 5 minutes. It's time to wrap it up. There'll be a great verse to start on. We'll be able to go, obviously there's some references there that are meaningful. So thank you for joining me. We'll be returning again tomorrow, Lord willing, and he usually is. So until then, remember that the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.
Woe to the multitude of many people, which make a noise like the noise of the sea, and the rushing of nations that make a rushing like the rushing of mighty waters. The nations shall rush like the rushing of many waters, but God shall rebuke them, and they shall flee far off, and shall be chased as the chaff of the mountains before the wind, like a wheel before the whirlwind. And behold, eventide